Joshua Gray.
And I am John Clark. After growing up in Thomasville, Georgia, I moved to Atlanta in 2008 and currently reside in the Collier Heights neighborhood, which was established in 1952. Collier Heights is nationally known as the first neighborhood developed, financed, designed, and constructed by and for African Americans. Notable residents include Martin Luther King Sr., Herman J. Russell, and Ralph David Abernathy. We want to honor the legacy of these notable residents by keeping neighborhoods like Collier Heights affordable for the residents they were built for.
As a native of Southwest Atlanta, I have witnessed in real time the displacement of family members and friends due to unaffordable housing. Atlanta had 67,000 foreclosures during the 2008 recession. My childhood home in Beecher Hills community is in this number. I vowed to counter the effects of gentrification by preventing the foreclosure of my grandparents' home to the launch of JJRE Group with a like-minded advocate. We are fully committed to restoring the dignity of Black and Brown communities.
So good evening once again. That was just a quick little intro video of who we are and what we're about. We have a special guest speaker who is going to come on at 6:45. So before we introduce him, we do want to go over some quick updates as well. So here's John.
Hello, everyone. Thank you guys for joining back with us. This is our second live session since June, the end of June. We had the first one. So welcome, and we'd like to ask you to invite all of your friends or anybody that you think will be interested in this conversation.
We also like for you to take this time right now to disconnect, just plug in, definitely tune in. We have a lot of great content for you today. We've definitely spent some time clarifying and getting things. We had a lot of people submit some additional questions at the first session that we weren't able to answer. So we definitely want to make sure we get to as many people as possible tonight. But just to recap what our mission is.
Our mission is we strive to provide clean and safe housing for marginalized communities while improving underfunded areas by building a socially responsible real estate network.
That's what we do. So just some quick updates. Go ahead. So John's going to go ahead and just run off some of our updates.
Yeah, some updates from the last time we spoke. So the first property that we were started working on it back in May, and we actually got a complete rehab done on that house. Because a lot of our seniors are being displaced due to property taxes, due to rising property taxes from rising, property values. So we're trying to still bring awareness to that. So please go to change.org/property tax cap Atlanta.
Okay.
And lastly, we would like to also encourage everyone to go to our YouTube page and subscribe and watch some of our videos. We have all of our commercials from our YouTube page up there. We have some other content from when we were working on our rehab. So it's a really good place to go and see what we've been working on and what we've been up to. So please go check both of those out. Josh has dropped those links into the chat.
So you all have to work with us. We're trying to do multitask. So just thank you for being patient with us. So I just dropped the YouTube channel. Definitely subscribe if you want to see a full complete rehab of our first project. Is there as well. I'm dropping the link to the petition. Please sign the petition. So far we have about 40 signatures, so we definitely want to get more involvement. And finally, shameless plug, if you have any family coming to visit in the city anytime soon, they need a place to stay, come check out our Airbnb. So the link is live as well.
Please do.
So we have a few more minutes before our guest speaker jumps in. So we'll go ahead and, I guess, start on his bio. Well, we'll probably wait till he joins, actually. There he is. So our guest speaker has arrived. So we're going to go ahead and jump into it. Hi, Gregor.
Hey there. How are y'all?
Good.
Hello, Gregor.
See if I
Thanks
can
for
get,
joining us.
absolutely. Let me just see if I can get my screen. Tell me if my screen's showing or.
Not yet.
Yep.
We're seeing you.
Nope, I'm showing it. Getting ready to show it right now.
I've got the screen up, but I was trying to get my thing. It's share screen, your entire screen. Let's see. Share. Let me try that. So, it's going to be a bummer if I don't get it.
No problem.
But go introduction and then just give me a thumbs up when it comes up.
Sure thing. We can do that. We'll go ahead and introduce you. So tonight we have Gregor Turk. Gregor Turk is an Atlanta native, and his projects include producing a significant body of artwork resulting from hiking and biking along the course of the 12,000-mile section of the 49th parallel that defines the U.S.-Canadian border. He's a photographer. He photographs blank billboards along fictitious Interstate 50. And he's made thousands of rubbings from text and imagery from ubiquitous historical plaques and markers found in American cities.
So,
right,
Gregor,
now you got something up for me?
Let's see here. Not yet.
Oh, come on.
No problem. We'll read part 2 of your bio while you get it.
So Gregor also has permanent public art installations in the International Concourse at the Atlanta Airport, gates E33 through 36, and in the Jacksonville Airport as well. His work is included in the J.P. Morgan Chase Art Collection, High Museum of Art, Mocha, Georgia, the Museum of Contemporary Art, Georgia, and numerous other public and private collections. He received his B.
You guys there?
Yep, we're still here.
Dude, I don't know what's going on. So you don't see a black screen with Blandtown written on it?
Not just yet.
Damn it. So I've got my shared screen up. Have y'all given me permission?
Yep, you should have permission. Yes, sir.
What does it say? Because I've got the it's not allowing me to share. I have cancel and I have share.
No problem. If you like, you can hit the Google.
Got it. How about now? Is it up?
Yep.
There we go.
There it is.
All right, let's do it then. So thanks for the introduction. My name is Gregor Turk, and I'm going to be giving you a little presentation on the neighborhood where my studio is. I've been working on a project for several years now called Reclaim Blandtown. And for those of y'all who are unfamiliar where Blandtown is, it's located on the west side of town, just a little bit northwest of Georgia Tech, a little bit to the west of Atlantic Station. But anyways, as I mentioned, my studio's been there. I've been there probably 18 years now. This is a logo I created. Gives you the quick history of Blandtown: founded, redlined, burned, rezoned, razed, and gentrified. So I'll be talking about a couple of these elements. But this is the house that I bought and turned it into my studio 18 years ago. Blandtown was a very neglected area, and at one point it had 200 to 300 African-American homes as part of this community. It was probably the northernmost African-American community. It was started, as the logo mentioned, in the 1870s. But a lot of changes started happening. This is what the community looked like when I moved in. It was a mix of industrial and dilapidated houses. The house there on the right, kind of on the other side of the street, was a crack house known as the Park. But then you had next to it a place that was making cabinets. It had been rezoned in the 50s, despite the community, the residential community. It was totally usurped by the industrial community and was rezoned. So it has a really straightforward racist history. Quite interesting. So this was the street when the houses started coming down in about 2006. The houses were in pretty bad shape. The reason my house probably survived was because it was made of concrete block. But here's an image. You can see the reservoir for the waterworks there on the right. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. And you can see just a few of the houses that remain. There were 21 total when I moved in 18 years ago. And this is my studio right here where the cursor is. Everything pretty much in that image, with the exception of one other house, was raised. This is what it looked like for almost 8 years. They had started developments, and then everything kind of stopped during the Great Recession. This is what it looks like now. So that's my studio there, and you can see my vegetable garden in the background. And here it is here, and there's the studio right there. This is 45 houses built by Brock, called Brock Built, West Town, and then this is a second phase that will have 75 houses. So as I mentioned, the neighborhood changed a lot during this time, and I got basically closed in. I'm what's called a nail house. It's where the owner refuses to sell. The house is kind of like nailed into the ground. But the developer, Steve Brock and Brock Built, were rebranding it as West Town. And as that was happening and people were starting to move in, I felt it was really important that the name be understood, that there was Blandtown. It was named after a freed slave named Felix Bland. And so I erected this billboard in my front yard. Everybody hear me okay?
Yeah, we hear you.
Okay, I couldn't hear anything, so I just want to make sure.
No problem.
Let me get back to that. I shouldn't have stopped. Shoot. I should not have broken the mojo. Why is that not coming back up? Anyways, I created this billboard, and it had Felix Bland's name imprinted throughout the billboard. You can see here, you can see Felix Bland. So it was interesting because the long-held history of the neighborhood was that Felix Bland was a freed slave. He was given the land by the former slave owner, and then he lost the land a few years later, within 20 years. And this has been the long-held history of the neighborhood. Well, in fact, it was actually his parents, Samuel Bland and Bonnie Bland, who during Reconstruction made enough money as a plasterer to buy 4 acres and bought this with the money they had earned, and then he bequeathed that to his son Felix. So you can see the upper part here is the 1880 census, and here's Samuel Bland and Bonnie Bland. And then down here you see the 1930 census, and here's Felix Bland, and he lived at least until 85 years of age. But he sold the property. He did not lose the property. He sold the years decades later. So there's this whole false narrative of the benevolent slave owner and the indigent who is either not smart enough to pay taxes or too poor to pay taxes. So none of that was true, but it was a long-held story until just about 2 or 3 years ago. So anyways, this billboard still stands. It's been up for 4 years. I cited it very strategically where it confronted the new owners of the development. It's been in the newspaper and magazines and stuff like that. The woman on the right here is Raina Giddens, and she is the one that did the research she didn't find that narrative acceptable, and so she started doing primary research, and she's the one that went to the censuses and discovered the true history of Samuel and Bonnie Bland and Felix Bland. The two other gentlemen are father and son. It's Johnny Lee Green and his son Warren. And Johnny Lee Green built the house that became my studio. This picture was taken when he was about 84. He died at 85 2 years ago, and had 5 children that were raised in the house that became my studio. So I've been working a lot of oral history with them, and then also with Wallace Bibbs. Mr. Green sold the house to Wallace, who also grew up in Blandtown. So I've been able to take notes and make some recordings of what life was like in Blandtown. I did an exhibition last year. This was downtown at Gallery 72. And it was called Reclaim, Proclaim Blandtown. It's a 2-part exhibition. The space was divided in half. This is some work that I do. This is repurposed bicycle inner tubes, repurposed rubber. And this is a topographic map of the core of Blandtown. The lines sort of form the contour lines. The series on the right are the 21 footprints of the 21 houses that were there when I moved in. Again, there's only 4 houses that remain, one being my studio. So here you can see those footprints. Again, made of rubber. Another piece is called Retrace, and the negative space in the center is where my studio is, and this is the number of new houses at the time and the palette of those houses that have been constructed as part of Westtown, the new development. On the other side, I was focusing on proclaiming Blandtown. What if we look at the history critically and acknowledge what has transpired? And so I'm using sort of an agitprop, kind of almost like propaganda, with that red, white, and black colors, these very graphic images. And so I'm raising questions using very strong words. Each one started with the prefix re. So I'm hoping to get these pieces up as banners throughout the community. I also looked at what if the name was used. Nobody uses the name Blandtown. And so what if businesses started using the name? And so I changed, like this is Westside Heights. I just went in and photoshopped things to use the name Blandtown. And then also just kind of use some humor in the exhibition. A lot of stuff was dumped and is still dumped in the neighborhood. And I've just been photographing tires and various sets of decay. So this is sort of making a joke off of the tires of, the doors of England that you may have seen a poster years ago. Also made t-shirts that have been fairly popular. Again, using that logo that I created. So let's see, Joshua had asked me to address 3 questions. One was, what do you want others to know about Blandtown, which is what I kind of covered there very quickly. It is a case study. It's used in Larry Keating's book, Atlanta Race, Class, and Urban Expansion, as a case study under the chapter entitled Eliminating Black Residential Clusters. I recommend reading that if you have the opportunity. But anyways, the other questions Joshua had asked me to address were, what were some of the experiences I faced with the developer? Every day was different. You never knew if you're going to be able to get in your driveway that morning. It was a mess. It was loud. I could have sold out. I didn't want to. I had a place that was zoned light industrial where I could create my work. I had a backyard where I could have my garden. But Brockville at one point put their silt fence on my property. I created what I call the crate wall of Blandtown. It's actually made of pallets. And they also lopped off 8 feet of my property on the back in March, which really made me angry because this is where I have my garden. They ended up having to put up a fence and a wall and of course give me my property back. But the biggest issue has been traffic with all this development. Blandtown is really changing. The only way in and out of this area is Huff Road. All right, you asked for some advice. Number one is stand your ground. Sell if you want to, but don't if you don't want to. Maybe it's time to move on, but don't allow yourself to get pressured. What will the gentrified neighborhood be like? Do you want to be part of that? With that comes increased property values, but also increased property taxes. Understand your property's value, not just the fair market value through comps, but what is that value to a developer, a flipper, and to you? And when in doubt, get advice from suitable others. And then be certain to document every infraction by developers. I would just take photographs of what transpired with Brockville, and I just sent it to the president of the company and just said, you know, you need to take care of this. And so I had a whole set of images that backed up what his transgressions were. Calls to action. Know and share the history of your neighborhood and home. Assist in building neighborhood identity. Be involved with your neighborhood association and any community improvement district, your CID, if there is one. If you're inside the Beltline Overlay District, know about that zoning. That's pretty important. It's a half mile on either side of the Beltline. And then help your neighbors, especially legacy homeowners. I can't emphasize that enough. And then preserve properties when possible, including through adaptive reuse. And so adaptive reuse is sort of what I've done here with the studio. And then if you want to learn more about my work or the project on Blandtown, go to gregorturk.com. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me. And then Joshua will have my contact information if you don't get this written down fast enough. And that's it. I think I did that 10 minutes, which was my prescribed time. And I'll open it up to you, Joshua and John.
All right. Thanks so much for that. We appreciate it. I know we talked previously about the history of Blandtown, and we definitely wanted to have Gregor on here and kind of speak to it because it's directly tied into what we talk about. And so thank you so much for your time. I'm going to drop his, what's your website again, Gregor? I'm going to go ahead and drop it in the chat here so people can find you.
Oh, you have to go back? Well, I just dropped it off. It's info at gregorturk.com.
Yes, thank you very much.
I'm happy to answer. Yeah, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you have time.
Okay, sure thing. Well, at this time, we'll turn it over to our audience. Does anybody have any questions? And check the Instagram.
While we're waiting for that, Gregor, I do have one question.
Sure.
Did you experience getting any threats from threatening letters from lawyers or anything while you were standing your ground?
No, I think having documenting, letting them know that they had infringed on my property, and I wasn't the only one. They infringed on 2 other people's property, and I think that kind of kept things going. I did get a stack about that thick of people trying to buy my house, by the studio, and I get a lot on my phone. That's just kind of a nuisance. But no, I mean, I think, you know, I'm really glad to be here, and I'm glad that I can promote Blandtown, and the name is starting to catch on with the community, with the new Blandtown Neighborhood Association, and I think that's really important. The one thing that is a little weird is, you know, here I'm the white guy telling the African-American story, but there's nobody left to tell that story, and so I feel, you know, I have buy-in from due diligence on my part on talking to former residents and hopefully letting their own words speak, you know, in terms of using quotes and using some of the recordings that I've done. And that's another component coming up. But, you know, it's a little bit awkward, but I think it's also Atlanta's story. I mean, you know, Atlanta, the whole thing with gentrification is, you know, it's not a black thing, it's a white and black thing.
Okay, absolutely. So once again, thank you so much for taking your time to speak to us today. We'll certainly be in touch, and if any more questions come along, we'll definitely send them your way.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Thanks. Have a good night.
Okay.
All righty. We want to thank Gregor once again.
Yes.
Very insightful content. As you all know, we are proponents of anti or counter gentrification methods. So we thank him so much for that. So now we are going to get into our Q&A session. So again, these are questions that you guys asked us either from the previous session or submitted for this session. So we are going to start that right now. So the first one was, what is counter gentrification?
So gentrification is reversing the adverse effects of displacing communities. And that's just a short, brief description of it. But anything that is adverse to raising property taxes that displaces current residents where they can't afford to stay in a place where they've already been living is what we're trying to do with counter gentrification. Displacement does not work well for our communities, especially because we're forced to move to places that are further away from jobs. A lot of people are in certain places for easy access to public transportation. And if you get displaced to where you have to move way out away from the city where most of the jobs are that you can get, that creates even more hurdles for you. So counter gentrification, reversing the adverse effects of displacing communities.
Okay. Our next question is about homestead exemption. So I'm going to do a quick screen share here. Right. Okay. So, excuse me. Homestead exemption. So what is it? So homestead exemption is the process of, so these are the requirements. First off, you must occupy your home. You must be a legal resident. And there are additional exemptions per county. So basically what it means is you basically get a tax discount for occupying your property. So this is really helpful because, as you all know, as gentrification takes place, property values increase, and that also increases tax. So one way that you can counter that is you can apply for homestead exemption. A lot of people don't know about it. A lot of first-time homeowners aren't aware of it, and this can ultimately help you save thousands of dollars on your taxes, depending on where you live, once again. But once again, this is a process county by county, and each county has their own programs related to homestead exemptions.
And as far as there is, like, say that you do get your property tax bill, they send them out early and you get a certain amount of time. I want to say it's like 60 or 90 days period where you can appeal if you don't agree with what the property taxes are. So there is an appeal process. You will only be able to appeal the assessment value of your home, not the property's estimated value, which is very important because a lot of you know that, the actual value of your home is different from the assessed value on your property tax bill. I think the assessed value is a certain percentage of what they believe the property value is. So they're going to go by whatever their assessed value is. And, if you live in a home that's in a neighborhood that is currently having a lot of houses being modified and resold for very high sales prices. Basically that can raise your assessed value, which will ultimately raise your property taxes. So you do have the option to appeal that assessed value on your property taxes. The second thing is you must file your appeal before the appeal deadline, which is printed on your notice. They do make sure that they get that out to you and it's all there. If you stay in Fulton County, there are 3 ways that you can file. Three ways in which you can file an appeal. You can do it on the Fulton County Assessor, fultonassessor.org. You can also do it in person, and you can also send it in by mail.
And then the final remedy for combating against property tax houses is house hacking. So we'll talk about that a little more later in the presentation. But again, this appeal process is related to Fulton County. So of course, definitely look up if you're interested in maybe what your specific county, definitely look it up. All this information is public on usually the assessor's website, and you can follow up from there on that. So the next item we want to talk about is, or the next question we received was related to eminent domain. Sorry. What was it earlier? That was earlier. Okay. 1 second.
So yeah, as far as the appeal process, we'll talk a little bit more about that while we're looking up eminent domain. Basically, you know, it's a pretty standard process across the state. It's just county by county with how they actually handle it. But it's a very streamlined process for the most part, where you do get it's pretty easy to file an appeal. Like I said, just check on the websites, or with your notice, they will have instructions on how to appeal with your notice. As far as the importance of making sure you do file for homestead exemption, like Josh said earlier, we want to make sure that we that you know that you're not being overcharged for your tax. It's a good way to decrease the overall value that they charge you based on your taxes. I know for me, example, one of my properties that I have, before I had the homestead exemption on that property, my primary property, the taxes were $1,000 more a year. So imagine that over however long you own the property, saving $1,000 a year. That's a big savings. And it overall, if your mortgage is tied to your taxes, it reduces your mortgage as well.
So I am looking for this image that we had. We had a pretty cool image to show about what eminent domain was, but I'm gonna go ahead and start speaking toward it. No, I don't think I loaded it up here. Okay. But basically, eminent domain is a process of the government forcing your house to foreclose and them taking it over for public use, right? So we see these a lot of times, and it could be blighted communities, you know, where underserved. A good example of some properties, if you think about it, when the interstates came to Atlanta, for example, so back in the 50s or the 60s, when they were building I-20, 285, a lot of these roads split African-American communities. And basically that process, the government called eminent domain. They said, we're going to use this space to build this road. And that was a process they could acquire that real estate in real time. Oftentimes there's not many ways that individuals can go about remedying eminent domain once it's called, or, you know, once they write you a check for your property, you basically have to leave. So here's a nice little kind of rendering of what it looks like, or just kind of a little illustration, what have you. So prime example, a highway project. So oftentimes, you know, they can be in prime locations. So location, you know, if the freeway needs to go this way. I think the most recent project that we might be familiar with in our lifetime is the construction of the new runway at the Atlanta airport, Atlanta Hartsfield Jackson. If you've ridden by there before, you've definitely seen how the runway extends over the 285, and there was an entire community right off that exit, and those people had to find other places to live. Of course, the government tries to pay, they say, you know, fair market value or whatever that property is assessed, but this is something that can happen. It's completely legal. It's completely within the realm of possibilities. Should your property be found in a potential construction site or something that can be deemed useful for the public. So that was a really good question that came in. The next thing we want to get into is, let me verify here. You had anything else you want to add on that, John?
Nope, I think you covered that one pretty well.
All right. So now we'll get into our second part of our presentation is real estate investing. So the last question we left off at, and I don't think we really gave it much justice when we were trying to answer it.
We did.
So we definitely wanted to try to do a better job this time. And that question was, what is an REIT?
So REIT is a real estate investment trust. A real estate investment trust is a company that owns a variety of real estate related products such as mortgages and different types of properties that generate income for investors.
So when we were talking last time, we were giving examples. So again, fundrise.com is an example of one. If there are any short-term or long-term, really, it's really more of a long-term strategy because real estate is a long-term game. If you are interested in that, almost all the trading platforms from your Charles Schwab, your Fidelity, all the major brokerage, they have, Edward Jones, they all have REITs that you can trade on. Our advice, as with any financial instrument, is educate yourself. If you want, we are both proponents of hiring experts. Find a financial advisor. They're definitely worth the money. And they can definitely fill you in on all the details as it relates to REITs. So that was a good question that came in. So the next question we want to follow up on is
crowdfunding.
Crowdfunding. What is crowdfunding?
So crowdfunding basically is a group of people getting together to achieve a common goal for the most part. A lot of times as you can see on the illustration here, there's some steps that normal crowdfunding does follow. So step one is, started on the internet for people to fund projects. Like I said, just whatever, a small group of people or a large group of people coming together, putting their money together to fund some type of project where they're going to all benefit from it once that project comes to fruition. Step two is micro lending, which shifts transactions to raise capital. Step three, peer-to-peer lending. That one helps startups meet early capital, meet early stage capital raising challenges. And then step four is crowdfunding, which it helps the economy grow by bringing long-term equity capital into the market.
So crowdfunding, of course, everybody's familiar with, to a total blank there. What's the platform?
Which platform?
Everybody's trying to raise money. GoFundMe.
Oh,
so yeah. GoFundMe is probably like the most common crowdfunding application out there. You have Indiegogo. So a lot of that's Indiegogo is one that's really centered around startups. You kind of give some incentives for when people donate, they might get something in return. But if you all look out there, there's a lot of different crowdfunding campaigns currently.
And one of the most recent ones that have made a lot of headlines recently is the 19 families that bought the land down in Middle Georgia. To start their own community. That's a form of crowdfunding. They all put their money together to buy a big plot of land. They're going to start developing it and making it to their own community. Once again, crowdfunding is, putting all that money together or your resources.
Pooling your resources.
Yeah, pooling your resources together and making great things happen that you couldn't do by yourself.
Okay. So that was a good question. Thank you so much for whoever submitted that question. The next question we got was related to house hacking. So we have a diagram here, but just real quick, house hacking is if anybody watches HGTV or any of those other shows, the rental properties, they talk about house hacking all the time. So house hacking is essentially you renting out either a room or a section in your house. It can be the basement, it can be the attic, it could be a guest bedroom, but have you guest house in the back if you have a nice property like that. And you basically use that money to pay down or pay off a portion of your mortgage. Of course, the ultimate goal is to use all that income to essentially not have any money coming out of your direct pocket towards your mortgage. So essentially, that's what house hacking is. So we had it listed earlier in the presentation as a remedy to counter the effects of property tax hikes. So you have multiple services now that allow you to
rent a room, rent your whole house, however you want to do it. Josh and I, we both have had Airbnb our houses that we stay in. We were doing it pretty much on weekends, where we were bringing in a decent amount of money that covered most of the mortgage, if not all of the mortgage, just by renting out our houses on weekends. So we're definitely a proponent of house hacking, whatever method you're most comfortable with, because that's what I had to get used to being getting comfortable with the idea of other people staying in my house. So, there's many different ways of doing it, but I say give it a try because it definitely is helpful for finance wise.
So I'm just popping in a little something in the chat. Please feel free to submit any additional questions you have. You can pop them in the chat. We'll try to answer them on screen. We have a bit of a delay on our end when questions and things come in. So just work with us. So the next question we had, a few people asked this one, so we thought it was very relevant. What type of loans are available to anybody?
So these are some of the most common types of loans. The first one is the 203K loan, which is basically a rehab loan. With this loan, you can finance a home and a rehab into one loan. You must have there are some restrictions, of course. You must have a licensed contractor and a detailed plan when you apply. They will not approve this unless you have a detailed plan with a contractor and having the different phases of the project. Because a lot of times what they do with this type of loan is they will go ahead and you would close on the house and they'll finance the house and everything, and they'll tell you how much finance you can get for the rehab, but they're only going to give you that finance money in phases, and they're going to check as the project goes along that, okay, you completed this phase, let us check, make sure everything is good with that to our standards, and then they'll move forward and give you the money for the next phase. The next type of loan is the FHA loan. This is a very typical type of loan that most people use, especially first-time home buyers. It's a government-backed home loan with less restrictive qualifications, lower down payment and or lower credit score. I know for me, when I bought my first property, I got an FHA loan and it was 3.5% down. So that's another loan. Like I said, that's a very common loan that most people, first-time home buyers, get. Another misconception though with the FHA loan is people think you can only get FHA loan one time. That is not true at all. Let's say you start out and you get an FHA loan and you refinance into a conventional loan. At that point, you are available to get another FHA loan. You just cannot have two FHA loans at the same time. But if you refinance out of your current FHA loan to a conventional loan, you can get another FHA loan with the lower down payment. You just have to, make sure that you're out of your current FHA loan. The third type of loan is a conventional loan. And this is a home loan that's insured by private lenders. It requires a higher credit score qualification and also a lower debt to income qualification, meaning they do not want you to have a lot of outstanding debt. I think for most conventional loans, I think the debt to equity has to be 40. Yeah, the debt to equity ratio has to be like 45% in order for you to even qualify. So you can't have more than 45% debt at that point if you qualify for one of those type loans. And the last loan is an investor loan. This is a loan that we've been using lately with our properties. It's pretty much the same with everything else as a conventional loan. The only thing is you're required to put at least 20% down on the house. And as far as if you're investing in a property, I feel that it is best to put that much down because it's an investment. So you're basically buying a house with equity from day one. And by putting down at least 20%, you also get to avoid the property mortgage insurance that's required on loans that have less than 20% put down on them. So that's another loan option for the investors. You do have to have 20% down, but as far as the credit score and the debt to income is pretty much the same as the conventional loan method.
Okay. Just want to add one more thing about the private mortgage insurance. After a certain, I think once you own at least, is it 60? Once you own a certain percentage of the
80%,
80%,
20%. Yeah. So
my bad. Yeah. So once you own at least 80% of your home, the PMI drops off. So a lot of first-time homeowners are kind of turned off by PMI, private mortgage insurance, just because it makes your monthly mortgage payment higher each month. But it does, depending on how, I guess, the frequency of how much you pay. If you have a little money laying off to the side, or, I don't know, maybe you have a different, multiple streams of income and you're using one to pay that down, the quicker you reach that threshold, the sooner it'll drop off and it actually reduce your monthly payment.
Yep.
So that's just something to keep in mind as well. So thank you again for that question. The next question we have is related to something we hold very near and dear to what we do, and that's evaluating contractors. So here's a little diagram that we kind of came up with to best kind of show people what to consider when you're working with the contractor. So first and foremost, have you worked with this vendor or contractor before? The answer is yes.
If the answer is yes, was the experience good? If your experience was good, go ahead and you can let them bid on the project. And if the answer is no, well, okay, let me read it through it with the proper channels here. So if the answer is yes, then and your experience was good, if the answer is yes, then you can is the bid cost. The next step you would look at is the bid cost effective and efficient. If that answer is yes, then of course go ahead and accept the bid. If that answer is no, you may want to get some other bids and see if you can find someone else that you're more comfortable with, or try to rebid the project, maybe negotiate if your issue was the price. Try to negotiate with the contractor. I mean, with a lot of contractors, you can have a relationship with them to where, if you can work something out, they're open to it, some of them. So let's go back to from the beginning with the contractor. So let's say the answer is no, and you didn't get a good experience with them, then definitely I would say don't even worry about moving forward with them. Try to find someone else. There are a lot of options out there. Definitely if you can get on a site like Thumbtack,
definitely.
Yeah.
Angie's List,
Home
Advisor. I use a lot of. We also use a lot of Nextdoor. I don't know if anybody has the Nextdoor, but Nextdoor does a great job. It's very community based, so oftentimes your neighbors can be on there and they can give positive referrals for local businesses. This is a good way to, like I said, find contractors as well. But oftentimes, a lot of contractors, they might not necessarily have a social media following. I know we're very prone to evaluate people's online presence before, and of course those things are important as well. But I have had really good work done by people who didn't have much of a social media presence, because of course, if we think about it, that's fairly new to. I think people who have been doing a lot of experienced contractors are people who've been in it for a long time. So again, that's where the power of referrals comes in. Almost everybody is listed on. Some people are listed on the Better Business Bureau. Once again, those resources we named, oftentimes they might, even the contractor, they have a phone number. You can often call them and say, "Hey, can you point me to anybody who you've done work for?" Or they might have references they might also be able to point you to.
Yep.
Just keep that in mind.
Yep. So let's go back to the beginning of this diagram and say that this is a contractor that you haven't worked with before. So you get a bid from them, and let's say that the cost that the bid is not cost effective or efficient. You can rebid the project, reject the bid, move on, or you can try to see if you can try to work with them and see if you can work something out. I personally, I think both of us can say this. We both pretty much can say if you don't feel comfortable with a contractor, don't go with them. I know someone asked a question on, what was a mistake that we made on our first project. We were dealing with multiple contractors on our first project, and everything went good, but we had one bad apple in the bunch.
And this is out of like 7-8 contractors.
Yes. Yep, out of like 7 or 8. But yeah, we had one bad apple out the bunch, and we gave him the same amount of respect, in the most part, that we gave everyone else, and courtesy, and trying to make sure that that they get everything that they need. This one particular contractor did not want to do right. So yeah, and it ended up turning into a headache. But yeah, lesson learned.
Right?
But yeah, so if you want to learn from our mistake, if you don't feel good about a contractor, or if you feel anything is off, and as we continued to work with this guy, when we were trying to work with them, signs were there. So follow your signs, follow your intuition, and just move on.
I see a comment here from Erica. She had bad experience with a plumber on Home Advisor, ended up doing it herself. So yeah, that's the thing too. Like I said, if you're using an online platform, definitely try to read as many reviews as possible. But then again, those are all subjective. Everybody's project is different, varying amounts of difficulty for the work provided, and so on and so forth. So be mindful of that. So This wraps up our Q&A portion. We try to keep these within an hour, so it's right at an hour. So the last couple of things we want to talk about is we just want to remind everybody to sign our petition. We are still trying to advocate for seniors in Atlanta to contribute to the property tax cap. So as you know, gentrification is spreading like wildfire in the city, and a lot of seniors are barely able to keep their homes.
Yep.
And we have a petition, we have about 40 signatures on it. So please, definitely, if you have the time, just go ahead and pop that. The website is at the top of the chat if you're streaming live, but definitely sign our petition. And so we're trying to bring as much awareness to this as possible. Anything you want to add on this one?
Nope, just please, sign the petition is very important. We don't want our seniors displaced. They work too hard to get to the point to where they can own their houses. And, it's just sad that a lot of them are losing out on their house because they can't afford the property taxes because of, gentrification.
Period, yeah. And the next thing we want to show you all is we've made some updates to our website. I'm just going to go ahead and give a quick showing. One thing we're really excited about, 1 second here, I'm going to pull it up on this side. Really excited to show you all. We've started featuring community voices. Mm-hmm. So this is basically going to do a quick screen share here, you all. So this is our community voices page. So we have been highlighting various stories, and we invite anybody, if you have a story related to a real estate triumph where either somebody within your family or you just want to share your experiences with real estate and would turn out to be some positive, definitely reach out to us. We're constantly looking for material to feature on our website. So our most recent one is from our good friend, business partner, Belinda Hooks. She speaks about the story of her grandfather's home. She actually did a complete rehab on it. Definitely check that out. We have an article here. We were interviewed recently in Voyage ATL magazine. Definitely check that out. And then our very first post was from our brother, John JP. He basically talked about his experiences growing up on the south side of Atlanta and the differences between
what he grew up seeing on the south side versus when he was able to go to the north side and just see how things were. They had nice clean sidewalks and nice clean streets and things like that. Just his experience and his look from what he grew up seeing to what he saw once he got older and started visiting other parts of Atlanta is very eye-opening.
Very eye-opening. Definitely check that out. And last but not least, we have some more new content on our page. We are featuring the petitions we support. So the property tax cap for Atlanta seniors is live, and also the justice for Breonna Taylor. That link is there live as well. And we've also have been featuring, I don't know if you all have been catching it, but we have been highlighting organizations, nonprofit organizations that have been making a difference within our communities, supporting, people of color, disadvantaged people. So our organization of the quarter this quarter is Breakthrough Atlanta. They provide educational resources. I'm a proud alumnus of Breakthrough Atlanta. It's a wonderful organization, and our previously recognized organization was Tri-Level Dental Station. They provided free dental screenings for senior citizens, and of course, their business has been completely impacted by the pandemic going on as well. So definitely check out those organizations. And last but not least, if you made it all the way to the end of the presentation and you're still listening to us, we want to offer you something special. This is for our Atlanta streamers, of course. Please, we have a cleaning service as well. If you sign on and as you submit your inquiry, if you mention Buy the Block or if you mention this presentation, you will receive a free oven cleaning or a free refrigerator cleaning. All you got to do is mention that you attended the Buy the Block session. And with that,
I think that's it.
That's all we got. So we appreciate you all so much. This is our second stream. Please continue to follow us, all our social media. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your support.
Shout out to our investors. And we will catch you all later. We don't know when the next session is going to be.
Yeah, we'll let you know.
We'll let you know. We'll keep y'all posted. But thank you all so much. And good night.
All right, good night.